Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Hi, I'm Szyman Karwowski, and this is my Jabba's Palace build. The whole goal of this build was to try to capture the first 20 minutes of Return of the Jedi, and then I also wanted to pay a little bit of tribute to Book of Fett. So starting up in the upper left, we have the chef from the Book of Fett. We have Boba in the bacta tank. We have the scene where Han and Chewie are in the jail cell. Then we try to capture the throne room. We have Han and Carbonite all the way there on the left. We obviously have Max Rebo and his band. And then we have Jabba. So we have our first motion here where we have the trap door. And Jabba will move forward. Then we sort of have the rest of the cantina scene here, the scene here with as many sort of aliens as I could put in. Then down here on the bottom left, we have the droid room with Gronk being tortured. And then we have the pit. The pit is also mechanized, and we have a gate which will come up. While the gate is coming up, you'll notice that we have an engine driving that and the chain pulling the gate up. And as that gate slowly moves up, we then are able to bring the Rancor out. And then finally, we have the Rancor Keeper down here on the bottom right. So this build took about 9 months. It was all free built. I didn't really plan it out. I just laid out the base plates and started building up.
This is spectacular. The amount of detail here is just incredible. Do you know how many pieces are in the whole build?
Probably around 20 to 25,000. I don't really know for sure. I sort of looked at my BrickLink orders, and it's somewhere around there. Obviously, there's a lot of 1x1, 1x2s, just to get all this detail.
Take us through some more of that kind of texturing in the build and how you were able to achieve the detailed look in these different levels, because it's very different styles of building with each of these levels.
So I wanted to really separate it out. Obviously, the Rancor pit and cave, I try to go naturalistic as possible. And the real method there is just to be random as possible. Every different area, try not to use the same method next to each other to get that sort of effect. I also put some bricks on curves to give that rounded cave feel. So I'm sort of give the illusion of round when LEGO doesn't do that. And then there was a lot of empty space here with the walls, and I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting. So again, just random 1x2. I would put the ratio I wanted in a bag and just pick them to generate that random feel. And then using the masonry bricks in between there and some of the headlight bricks to get some bricks coming out. And then the roof is actually just hanging on barely, but I wanted to get the entire effect of the palace, which is a curved slope, which obviously in LEGO is not the easiest effect to get. But I tried to, as best I could, capture that.
That's what makes this so cool, is that from no matter where you look at it from, it has a super detailed finished look to it. So even the other side of this that doesn't have all the scenes looks fantastic.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I knew in a convention like this, people are going to see the back, and hopefully it draws people to come and take a look at the build.
Now let's take a closer look at some of these details you kind of mentioned. I know you've got a lot of minifigures, a lot of action kind of going on here. What are some of these figures doing here? What are some of those kind of background details?
So, you know, in the movie, we obviously see the aliens drinking up to nefarious no good, so I wanted to sort of capture that. I put in a little bar here. Obviously, the band scene is really iconic from that movie, so I wanted to capture that. These are 2 custom minifigs from, I believe, Atlanta Brick Company that really sort of add to the authentic sort of Max Rebo band feel. And then in the back, you have, you know, Jabba, Boba Fett, Sirius Crumb, Princess Leia, obviously on her chain. And everywhere, I just wanted to give it that dirty feel from the movie. So you can sort of feel that this is not a nice place to be.
And one of the coolest elements here is definitely the motorized functions that you took us through at the beginning. So how did you include those and kind of set up those different motorized functions in the build?
So the motorized functions, Jabba's throne room works on an actuator. The trap door is actually one single long tile piece, and behind it I have a tire pushing and pulling the tire, because I needed something fast enough to actually get the trapdoor to move so quick that the figure drops rather than slowly falling in. The Rancor is actually, there's an axle and it's pushing the thread pieces back and forth. So there is this much, probably a 1x12 thread piece with an axle in the middle, so it pushes it back and forth and moves up to 12 pieces. I use one of the clone wheels for the engine here, and this is just turning round and round. And then obviously here are just some threads that I added in to sort of give it the illusion that this is pulling the gate up. And so I thought it was a nice little touch to sort of give it that additional something and help fill some empty space I had. Because honestly, there's a lot of weight here, and so I had to create support behind it in order to support all this, and so I had to fill stuff up and wanted to, make sure everywhere you look there's something going on.
With all of that weight, was it difficult to incorporate kind of the rooms and the openings, especially in the base here, because you've got to make sure that everything's still going to stay up?
Yeah, so honestly, it's just behind all of this is a lot of Technics, and then a lot of Duplo mixed with Technics to give it the strength it needs. So this is really all just facade for what is a whole bunch of Technic and Duplo.
That works really well, though. So I know you mentioned the roof earlier. Is that just a whole bunch of separate panels then you can just kind of lift on and off?
Yeah. So this is all a bunch of separate panels which lift up and on, and you can see it sort of moves, slides. So it's not quite perfect, but with the scale, you can barely see the gaps. And that was really the only way I could achieve that curved, circular look, which is so iconic in Jabba's palace.
And one of the things that makes this build pop and really appreciate the details is all the lighting in here, because without that, it'd just be very dark back there. So how did you incorporate that into the build?
So I actually use all LEGO Power Function lights. So all the lighting here is also LEGO Power Function. I don't know why I did that. It was purely hubris, I guess. But I think it sort of adds authenticity. And then to get the different color lights, I'm just using different trans color pieces stuck into a Technic 1x2 with a hole on top of that to get the different colors in the build. So it's little square trans pieces with power function lights and the 1x2 Technic with holes to give it that lighting. And then in the back, obviously, we have a little fire with lights coming in under the flame to give it that flame effect. We have the blue lights with Hanlon carbonite to give it that look from the movie. And then we have one little Easter egg, is if you look here from the angle, you can see Luke walking down the stairs.
You always got to have the hidden scenes in there.
Yeah. So I tried to capture as much of the film as I could.
So out of all the many different Star Wars scenes, how did you decide to tackle this one in kind of so much detail here?
Honestly, 3 years ago, I was running out of shelf space for all my regular Star Wars purchase builds, and I decided that building mocks may take up more time, so I won't fill up my shelf space as quickly. I started with a basic throne room, and then I just kept building and rebuilding that over the last 3 years till you see the result you have here. So this was my first attempt at a mock, and I just spent 3 years building and rebuilding till I got to what you see here. And then once this is over, I'm going to take some of it apart and start rebuilding again and adding to it.
This is incredible for your first mock here. Really excellent work. And speaking of displaying a build, when you brought this to the show, what was that process like? How does this kind of break down for transport?
So this was a mistake I made. As this is my first build, it really doesn't break down. So it lives on this butcher block. A friend of mine, John Stoll, built for me in exchange for a Lego Land Rover Defender. It has these nice handles, and literally you just pick it up and drop it on a cart. So it's one single piece, and the only thing which really comes off is these roof tile pieces.
Okay, something you'll maybe change in the future to make it more movable.
I have learned now that modular helps when deciding to bring something to a show. I actually had to rent a very large SUV because it turns out this doesn't even fit in a X3. So I had to rent an SUV just to bring this to the show.
Well, this is excellent work here. You were also nominated for an award there for Best Star Wars, so congratulations on that as well.
I actually had no idea there were awards because this is my first BrickFair, so that was a nice surprise.
Excellent work here. I can't wait to see more of what you do in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.